Good morning, Bucktubers. It is your boy Buck once again, coming to you live from the top of the world. There it is. Buck, why aren't you in your office? Why aren't you hiding in your hole? You may be asking. And that's a reasonable question. And the answer is because it's Sunday and it's time for the Sunday hike. Now, you are immensely fortunate because the 100 or 1,000 foot elevation increase has cooked these pathetic animals. So they need to crouch in the shade and pant. Do not be concerned for them. It was only a mile and there's a lake around the corner. They're going to be fine. But I am giving them some time in the shade. And during that time, I would like to talk to you about a book called Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life by Marshall Rosenberg. So our boy Marshall is primarily concerned with being very nice. The idea behind nonviolent communication is he expects that he's going to be talking to people who are more or less unbearable for some reason, be that they have no ability to regulate their own emotional state, or that they're openly violent, or that they're very stupid, or some combination of these three factors. This can also be used for when you're just trying to be nice to someone who's also nice, but that's not really what it was designed for. You know, this is more of a hostage negotiation instrument. There's a big grasshopper. So, what are the premises of nonviolent communication? Well, first and foremost, you have to avoid doing verbal violence, which seems to be defined by contradicting the other person. So the main premise of this book is don't ever say nuh-uh. Just validate. This is something that you will see showing up in the beginning of I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. Not in the beginning, but in the practical application section of I Hate You, Don't Leave Me for dealing with people with BPD. It doesn't really work, but it's well-intentioned. So the idea behind the nonviolent communication is no matter how far off the goop the person you're talking to happens to be, you just validate their delusion endlessly, right? Make sure that they know that they are the rightest in all the land, no matter what they're saying, no matter how destructive or incorrect or potentially dangerous it is. You say, sure thing, sweetie, that is correct. And also, you look very pretty today. That's how you start with nonviolent communication. From there, you proceed in framing your contradiction as an agreement while ensuring that it appears unrelated, right? And Mr. Rosenberg, it's probably Dr. Rosenberg, wants you to continually give progress reports on your emotional state, which is fragile. You have to act incredibly fragile. When you're talking to this person and they're yelling in your face, you're like, it seems that something I said has upset you. I can relate to this feeling of being upset, and I assure you it was not my intention. When you yell at my face, it makes me feel frightened and confused. I would like to attempt to bridge this gap by once again stating that I want you to have a nice day, and then just like squeeze in whatever it is that you're trying to non-violently communicate. You are not allowed to say the word but. That's very important in non-violent communication. The word but is forbidden because that's a contradiction. And as soon as they're contradicted, it's like in Pee-wee's Playhouse when they all start screaming. That's what happens if you say the word but. You can't do that in non-violent communication. So the main idea, validate relentlessly. I statements that explain where you're at emotionally, even if you're not there emotionally. In fact, especially if you're not there emotionally. You just have to make this other person believe that you're there emotionally. So since they're already at an emotional place, they can connect empathetically to where you're allegedly at in this emotional place. Because obviously, logic is not working on them at that present time, right? And never, ever, 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 ever say the word but. because that seems like it might be interpreted, or that could be interpreted as a contradiction. And if you contradict them when they're already going hog wild, you're going to have a bad time. So our boy Marshall would just travel between like prisons and inner city schools and all of these other places, and he would try nonviolent communication, and it would eventually work, but sometimes it would take days to work, which I feel like at some point we can ascribe to the law of averages, but he swears by it. Obviously, I'm not sold, but I've also never, just because of how often I use the word but, there's a lot of contradictions in this world. You ever notice that? Walt Whitman. So I contradict myself. I am vast. I contain multitudes. What are you going to do? A noisy grasshopper. I'm not 100% on it, but it seemed to work for him. And you can get worksheets on it, so you can use it in session or in classes if the spirit moves you. I somehow doubt the spirit will move me. 6 minutes is probably enough time for the dogs to rest. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Like, follow, subscribe, and I'll give you one last panorama here. Simply gorgeous, huh? That's the stuff. I'm doing this with a selfie camera, so I don't know how much of the mountains you're seeing. All right. Let's go check on these two. How you doing? Huh? You ready? Oh, you are? Let's rip.